Good afternoon. Thanks to the NBC and Brown and Glynn for inviting me to talk today. I hope you've had an interesting and informative day and immersed in the details of the building regulations. I was at my 12-year-old's graduation from primary school for the first half of the day, where they each kind of gave a speech about their 8 years experience in school. So there were tears, so this probably won't be as emotionally charged an event, but we'll do our best to make it interesting anyway. So as it's getting on in the afternoon, we're going to kind of come up for a bit of air, and we're going to look at the building regulations from broader design principles through case study. And I suppose the added novelty of this is it's not a dwelling, but an old schoolhouse that SDCC they adapted and extended to bring back into use as a new community centre. So there's going to be plenty of images to look at, and we'll let them lead the way so you can sit back and relax. So what we're going to look at in this presentation is the inception of the scheme, the history of the school building, our design approach to adaptation and reuse of the old school building and the new contemporary extension, how we procured and delivered the project, the challenges we experienced during construction through the lens of the building regulations, and to finish it off on the successes we achieved, where we exceeded the requirements of the building regulations through a holistic design approach. So this is Saggart Schoolhouse Community Centre. It's created by the adaptation and reuse of the vacant protected structure of St. Mary's National School, which you can see on the right of the screen. And it involves a new entrance and reception, service area and multifunction hall, which have been added to the original school building. And this creates a vibrant new community centre for the growing residential area of Saggart. So a bit about the history. St. Mary's National School was vacant since 2014, and it was at risk of falling into disrepair. The original school was completed in 1937. It was one of the first in a series of national schools by the OPW, designed by Raymond Boyd Barrett, no relation to Richard Boyd Barrett in case you're wondering, and it is a protected structure. SDCC identified the opportunity to save and revitalise this as an important part of Saggart's heritage by purchasing the school building. And that's a photo from 1989, which you can verify by the car in it. So this is the existing school as we purchased the site, and we observed that the school, the old St. Mary's National School, doesn't address the road. And you can see kind of some back garden wall, which is not good urban design as we would regard it. So and the school sits around the corner of the site behind another site. So we wanted to kind of extend the school to readdress it back to Saggart Village. So we designed a new contemporary entrance and multifunction hall to address the road and Saggart. It forms a new civic space framed by the original play shelter, which we restored, which is on the left there, and the original school to the right. And this civic space is now used for kind of well-being, outdoor well-being classes, and also occasional markets. And it's kind of giving back to Saggart, which is the idea of this whole scheme. The multifunction hall is designed with a pitch roof form to complement its village setting while using contemporary materials and detailing. So yeah, the pitch roof form speaks to the pitch roof form of the school, and we kind of made very effective use of this powder-coated aluminium cladding and roofing system, which we are quite pleased with the outcome of. So the new glazed entrance establishes the face of the building using a slim concrete canopy and colourful fins. The old school building has been restored, upgraded, and repurposed in consultation with the SDCC consultation officer, Aidan McNamara. And because this school was a relatively simple building, we were able to take kind of a practical use to conservation and reuse. I suppose a couple of points of note on conservation of this was the windows in the existing building were PVC, so we replaced them with quite slim, elegant, heritage-style timber sash windows, which were quite successful. The original wall is pebble dash, so we kind of painted and reinstated that. And the roof slates were a particularly small kind, so they were all taken off, and all the reclaimed ones were instated on the front and the sides of the building, and broken ones were replaced by replicas to the rear. So once again, it's balancing conservation with practicality. So moving inside the building now, this is the new entrance, reception and community cafe, which you can see kind of the colour theme kind of running from the outside to the inside of the building, and this faces back out onto the public space. The multifunction hall has a pitched roof, and this allows it a generous ceiling height internally, while also limiting its mass on the site and within the village setting and by the school. And so this is used for large community events and kind of well-being and exercise classes and yoga. And it can also be subdivided into two mid-sized spaces. Moving into the old school building, the original classrooms have been repurposed to provide bright, spacious meeting rooms. And these have proved very successful spaces. We were very pleased with the outcome of these. We really wanted to maintain and reinforce the character of the old schoolhouse character. So original features have been retained and restored, including blackboards. So the writing on that is the writing from when the school was vacated back in the 90s. Although I think the contractors put that board in upside down. If you look closely, the writing's upside down. And the original timber floors and timber ceilings were restored. We took a special interest in the different textures of the walls, and kind of wanted to retain them and make a feature of them. So you can see the rough texture of the original wall, the cast dado, and these were map rails that they used to kind of hang drawings and documents on. And this creates a very nice feature in the classrooms, and it's kind of contrasted with the smooth new plasterboard above. The corridor floor tiles have been retained and restored, and they've got all the character of the near century of use that they've experienced. Yeah, that's quite a characterful floor in the corridor. The original stone name plaques and threshold stones have been restored and reinstated. And that's not a defect, those kind of blotched out bits. That was during World War II when they scratched out the place names so invading armies could get confused. So, that's part of the ongoing history. And so all of these features come together to maintain the distinctive schoolhouse character of the community centre, which was quite important to it. So moving on to procurement and how the project was procured and delivered. So we in SDCC designed Saggart Schoolhouse Centre to Part 8 approval in consultation with the community section. And this allowed us to, I suppose, develop and take ownership of the design and develop a brief. We then appointed an integrated design team led by Aidan to deliver the project to completion. And so Aidan are a kind of they're an international multidisciplinary team, and the architects in EOR were based in London. So it was Viral Bashfar and Amanda Impey, and they provided a very, very attentive service on this scheme. So that, I suppose, established our relationship with the building regs, where we established the principles of the building regs through the design, and then the design team kind of developed them, and they did the fire cert, the DAC, and they delivered the building to the regulatory requirements. And I suppose also the fact that this was a single-story building kind of made, obviously in design, probably the two of the ones that drive the design the most are fire escape and TGD Part B and accessibility Part M. But when it's single-story, there's less complexity involved in that. So, and also SDCC with the community section helped establish a board of management of engaged members of the Saggart community, and they are essentially the client and they operate the building, and they were with this scheme from inception, and I signed up as a member of this board, I suppose, to advise them during construction. Since construction's completed, I've stepped aside and let them at it, but it is very beneficial to have the operators, whoever's going to operate the building at the end, their input kind of throughout the design process, and they'll ensure its ongoing success in the community. Now, this is the perilous part of the presentation. We're going to move into the challenges section, and kind of what challenges we experienced on site. And what I'll reference in particular is materials and workmanship. So just to put it into the context of the building regulations, so Part D notes in relation to existing buildings. In the case of material alterations or material change of use of existing buildings, the adoption without modification of the guidance in this document may not in all circumstances be appropriate. Buildings of architectural or historical interest are especially likely to give rise to such circumstances. In these situations, alternative approaches based on the principles contained in the document may be more relevant and should be considered. So I suppose what's that saying in particular relation to historic buildings, it's not taking an entirely prescriptive approach, it's about using the principles of the building regulations. And in some cases where it might be just a kind of a repair or a replacement, you could take the not new or greater contravention approach, but where we're doing a full refurb and extension here, we want to meet those standards and we want to exceed them where we can. So early in construction stage, we became concerned about standards of health and safety and workmanship on site. Good health and safety standards on site are a good initial indicator of an effective contractor. So in SDCC, we assign a clerk of works to regularly inspect and report on work on the site. And in this case, we appoint a very attentive one, Darren Solon, and he promptly identified where there were issues with workmanship. If there are significant concerns about workmanship, work cannot progress until it has been rectified. And in particular relation to protected structures, workmanship is very important and has to be kept a very, very close eye on. So you can see the steel frame of the new extension being erected there in the early stages. So the site manager, who's kind of a linchpin on site, was not the one whose CV was provided in the contractor's tender. So on site, they damaged a section of the protected structure rear wall, as they tried to remove some joists that were embedded in the wall with an excavator, which is kind of not the most careful approach. So you can see in the yellow painted section there, kind of the crack running across there. So that was a crack in the rear protected structure wall when they had pulled out the joists above. So we're understandably concerned about that. So the EOR issued a defects notice. So yeah, when there is a significant defect on site of concern, a defects notice is the way to document that. So the contractor then had to provide a method statement of careful repair to the damaged wall, which then had to be agreed and overseen. So he was replaced shortly by another site manager. So we requested a CV for this site manager, but it wasn't forthcoming. So the new main hall has a steel frame, as I showed you in the previous image, structure. When erected, the steel columns were alarmingly misaligned with the associated concrete footings. And that's not an optical illusion you're seeing there of floating columns. They are actually hanging from the frame above with the footings kind of not meeting the footings. So we were understandably alarmed. So the EOR issued a defects notice and instructed the contractor to provide an as-built survey so they could ascertain where this issue had arisen. And as I mentioned, if there are significant concerns of workmanship, that element of work cannot proceed until it is resolved. So, working with the county architect, Cian Hart, we arranged an emergency meeting with the EOR and the contractor to address our concerns. The contractor replaced the second site manager with the one whose CV they had provided on tender, and he turned out to be significantly more effective. So yeah, kind of on site, like a site manager is really kind of a hinge point of the whole build. So it's important that they are effective. So we set out the key performance requirements of health and safety, conduct, quality and workmanship, program, and budget. And the contractor had to meet and address all of these before moving on to address the next item, kind of in order of magnitude. But we weren't out of the woods yet. So the contractor had poured the structural floor slab, and we were alarmed by the poor quality of finish. So it was uneven underfoot, and it was even kind of a boot mark, which was kind of a smoking gun as far as I was concerned, evident in the slab. And you can see where, I think a plywood board had been left on the setting slab. So we immediately flagged that with the contractor to be addressed. As this slab was a structural slab to be covered by insulation and underfloor screed, the poor appearance wasn't critical. But an exposed concrete entrance canopy and soffit was a central part of the design. And high quality workmanship is critical to achieving satisfactory exposed concrete. So from the worrying experience of the floor slab, we insisted that they provide a benchmark sample for approval before they are allowed to proceed with the concrete canopy. So they kind of took heed of this, fortunately, and they engaged a specialist subcontractor who produced an approved benchmark. So due to the benchmark process, and I suppose our absolute focus on the quality of this, a very successful, slim and well-finished canopy and soffit were achieved, much to our relief. So in summary, kind of through our establishment of this performance requirement system, the contractor significantly improved their approach and performance and delivered a successful building of high design quality. So there was kind of a happy ending to that challenge there. I know it was looking ropey for a while, but it came good in the end. And now moving on to the successes. We've talked about the challenges, now we'll talk about the successes. So accessibility and inclusivity are important to SDCC. So we were looking to kind of exceed Part M in kind of a holistic manner where we could. So we applied the principles of accessibility, informed the design and response to the site, and it was designed to make the existing protected structure more accessible. So in the laser, there we go. Oh, handy to know that. So this section, there was several steps up to this entrance here, which was the original boys' entrance to the school, which obviously would not be accessible in this in this day and age. So we set the new entrance at the lower ground level of the site to provide level access, and this also kind of was very helpful to the design in that it kept the mass and the height of our large multifunction hall structure lower in the site, because what we actually wanted to do is keep it below the ridge line of the original school, not to dominate that. So there you can see kind of the principles of accessibility and design kind of working hand in hand to inform each other. And at the upper end of the site, the old school building is also accessible, working with the gently sloping topography. And this was the original girls' entrance, but you'll be glad to hear they're no longer segregated. And this classroom is now a childcare room, so this can act as an independent kind of access for that section of the building, which is quite useful. And there's also up at this end of the site a kind of natural play area, which once again kind of links very successfully back to the childcare room. So inside, the accessible steps and platform lift make the transition within the new area to the protected structure. And you can see kind of two of the reinstated plaques up on the wall there. So that's the girls' school, and the boys ones that were stated there. A full suite of accessible WCs and facilities have been provided in the new and also the original building. And there's one of our blackboards which we've put in the new area. And the building is also, as a community centre for the community, it is socially inclusive and accessible for all ages and levels of mobility. And so this is the childcare room you saw at the end, and kind of the converted classrooms. They allow for, there's active age groups can happen in there. And also, because we were designing this during the pandemic, we kind of made a pivot in design to service two of the classrooms to work as remote working hubs. And the cafe is also used as a youth cafe, so we're covering multiple generations there. And I suppose another success was the conservation of fuel and energy, and I suppose as it relates to Part L, but also broader. So it's the scheme is sustainable through the conservation and adaptive reuse of the vacant protected structure of St. Mary's National School, which would have fallen into dereliction. Now, like that isn't the kind of thing that necessarily Part L deals with, which is kind of more about energy usage, but that is, I suppose, the first point of sustainability of this project. It's about reusing and kind of upgrading an existing building, which otherwise, well, this is a protected structure, so demolition was not an option, but you know, with existing buildings, demolition, embodied carbon. So if a building can be reused, that is a kind of step one in your sustainable journey. So we created an energy efficient modern extension to complement the protected structure. It's delivered to meet NZEB standards, and the whole building achieved an A3 BER rating, which is a high standard considering the protected structure was part of that. And that was possible because we took kind of, I suppose, a practical approach to the conservation rather than I suppose, an absolutely dogmatic one where absolutely everything had to be conserved and no insulation could be used, which, and kind of, I suppose, more delicate kind of protected structures could be more of a challenge. So we took a practical insulation strategy, which we agreed with the conservation officer. So the prominent classroom building to the front, we didn't want to externally insulate because there was that distinctive pebble dash finish. But also we noted that while the school building is a protected structure, it's quite a simple building, so there was no kind of overly ornate features that you'd be concerned about covering up inside. So we internally insulated the external walls of the main classroom building, prioritizing the external appearance. And we used a breathable kind of conservation specific calistherm insulation. The less visible rear service wing is externally insulated. And this would be kind of, I suppose, where energy efficiency and practicality, like so the front, conservation kind of, I suppose, takes precedence. At this, where kind of the balance is moving towards energy efficiency and practicality in terms of, because we're looking at the visibility. So, the rear service wing is externally insulated to optimize effective insulation and maximize the small room sizes. If we'd internally insulated there, the rooms would become smaller. And these are the rooms that are providing our WCs, our stores, and our offices for the old school building. And finally, site has been designed to be self-sufficient in surface water management, which is important to SDCC, along with flood resilience for climate resilience. So the site was largely covered with an impermeable tarmac. So we removed and replaced this with softer, more permeable surfaces where practical. So this front area is kind of gravelled with a geogrid, so that's the vehicular and parking area there, and focused paved areas on the public and service spaces. And we also provided a sedum roof on the new flat roof, which provides attenuation and also biodiversity. So we spoke about this, so that's covered some of the successes. So in conclusion, we've discussed our design approach to adaptation and reuse of an old school building and the new contemporary extension, how we procured and delivered the project, and how this formed our kind of relationship with the building regulations, the challenges we experienced during construction, and the approaches to overcome these challenges, which was the performance requirement system we applied, and the successes we achieved, where we exceeded the principles of the building regulations. In this case, it's accessibility and conservation of fuel and energy through a holistic design approach. And this allowed us to deliver a successful Saggart School community centre building for the community. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. Thank you.